Now that's such a powerful little teaching, short and to the point, and was the cause of Bahiya's enlightenment. And this is a little explanation which I wrote out afterwards. Number one, Bahiya was not a monk. The sutta does not record him giving dana, nor taking refuge in the triple gem, nor keeping any precepts. Moreover, the sutta has no mention at all of Bahiya ever meditating, let alone reaching a jhana. Yet after receiving a very brief teaching from the Buddha, Bahiya became fully enlightened, an Arahant, within seconds. This episode is very well known in Buddhist circles because it seems to make enlightenment so easy. It appears that you don't need to renounce. You can be miserly and not give dana. No ceremonies such as that of taking refuge are required. Precepts are unnecessary, and even meditating can be avoided. What a relief for some. All you need is intelligence, and everybody thinks that they are intelligent. This makes Bahiya's teaching both attractive and notorious. Were you paying attention when you heard Bahiya's teaching? How many of you were now fully enlightened because of that? So let's go deeper into this. As usual, there is more to this story than is recorded in this one sutta. It is often the case that the sutta records only the highlights of a long episode, just like the wedding photos did not record the first meeting, the dating, and the proposal. So many suttas do not record all that occurred before the finale. So what is the full story of Bahiya? How can we put the finale, captured for posterity in the Udana, into its full context? Fortunately, the whole story is recorded in the Apadana, which records some of the past lives of the Arahats, and in the commentaries. Now let's see the full story. In his previous life, Bahiya was a monk under the Buddha Kassapa, the previous Buddha. Together with 6 other monks, he climbed a steep mountain, throwing away the ladder, and determined to remain on top of that rock until they became enlightened or died. The enlightenment or bust idea. One of the 7 monks did actually become an Arahant. Another became an Anagami, the non-returner. The other 5 died on the mountain. Bahiya was one of the 5. In Bahiya's final life, he was a sailor, successfully crossing the ocean 7 times. On the 8th voyage, he was shipwrecked, but managed to survive by floating ashore on a plank of wood. Having lost all his clothes, he made temporary garments out of bark when begging for food in the town of Sotapanna. The townspeople were impressed with his appearance and offered him food, respect, and even a costly set of clothes. When Bahiya refused the new clothes, the people esteemed him even more. Bahiya had gained a comfortable living and so did not return to sea. And the people regarded Bahiya as an Arahant, and soon Bahiya thought he was an Arahant too. That's the trouble. If people regard you overmuch as enlightened or special, then people tend to regard themselves as that. At that point, a deva, a heavenly being, discerned the wrong thought of Bahiya, and out of compassion reprimanded him. It's okay to reprimand each other because it helps. That deva was none other than his former fellow monks, one of the seven. He was the one who had become an anagami. It is interesting to add, the remaining four fellow monks were also reborn at this time, and they all, like Bahiya, eventually attained enlightenment. They were Pukusati, Subhiya, Kumara Kassapa, and Daba Malika, often called Daba the Malian. And many of them were amazing beings. Even a Daba Malika, Daba the Malian, he became fully enlightened when he was 7. And he continued his monastic life by doing a service for fellow monks. Daba Malika's service was to be the guest monk. And he was a guest monk in the many monasteries and caves around Rajagaha. And the people, the monks, apparently, at that time, deliberately arrived at the bamboo grove in Rajagaha, always late, after sundown. And the reason, this is from the Vinaya Pitaka, the Vinaya, the reason why they arrived late is because to be taken to one of the lodgings, which were free, that it was dark, and so they needed some sort of light to show the way. And Daba Malika could light one of his fingers. It was his psychic powers. And so he used the light from his finger to show the way to these visiting monks. And even monks at that time were quite very keen to see Daba Malika use the light from his finger to show the way. Then the Anagami Deva, former friend of Bahiya, informed Bahiya about a true Arahant, the Buddha, living at that time on the other side of India at Savatthi. Bahiya immediately left Suparika, present-day Sopara, just north of Mumbai, and reached Savatthi, just 17 kilometers west of Berhampur, in only one night. Bahiya met the Buddha while he was on alms round and asked for a teaching. The Buddha at first refused, for it was an inappropriate time. But on being asked a third time, the Buddha interrupted his alms gathering and gave the famous teaching presented above. And within seconds of hearing that Dhamma, Bahiya was fully enlightened. A few minutes later, the Arahant Bahiya was killed by a cow with calf. So Bahiya's background was exceptional. He had been a monk under the previous Buddha, Kassapa. His powers of determination were so strong that he went to meditate on the mountain with the resolve to become enlightened or die. In this life, he could hear devas speak to him, and he could travel more than halfway across India, some 1,300 kilometers. Okay, this is Ajahn Brahm's translation, as the levitator flies, not the crow flies, in only one night. If you had such a background from your previous life, and had such psychic powers already in this life, then perhaps you too would have been enlightened when you heard Bahiya's teachings a few minutes ago. It is usually the case that one requires a very deep samadhi, stillness, especially the stillness called jhanas, to achieve such psychic powers. Certainly, Bahiya would have had a predisposition for meditation, taking account of his previous life, and the psychic power which they call the divine ear that enabled him to hear the Deva, and the other psychic power that enabled him to travel so fast, suggests that he was practicing the jhanas before he heard the Deva. Perhaps this was another reason why he thought himself an Arahant. But there is more evidence to suggest that, though it was not mentioned in the texts, Bahiya had been practicing jhana. Few people are aware that the very same teaching that here I call Bahiya's teaching was also given by the Buddha to the very old monk Malukya.